Hey everybody, we are live now, and I'm really hoping the audio is going. If not,
you can read lips maybe,
yeah.
or
But it looks like it is.
so we literally just finished what 12 minutes ago or something. The room is empty.
You recognize this, please.
We're very happy you were here, and we have your Muddiest Point sheets. We're going to take a few minutes and try to unmuddy some of these muddiest points. We won't completely unmuddy them. So there were a couple of questions that had to do with how do you know how much time to spend online versus how much time to spend in the face-to-face class? And one of them had to do with the credit hour ratio. So this must be a lecture lab class or a lecture class. I am not an expert on all the different course types with ratios, but what I will say is this. Every course type would meet, if you thought about a face-to-face version of the class, how many actual hours would you be meeting with the students face-to-face, including the lecture time and the lab time? If it were a 50-50 hybrid, take half of those hours and say, that's how much online teaching and learning those students should be getting, right? So, I don't know, Kay, is there a better way to explain it than that?
No, I think that's a great way to explain it. It's like, it's kind of like, don't cheat the students.
Don't cheat, and don't cheat yourself, because my sense as a teacher, what you think is the most important is that live time you spend with your students. So what I have found with online teachers, as well as hybrid teachers, is we struggle with losing the teaching time. And so I don't mean lecture necessarily, but that time that you're working with students, then that facilitated time, in a hybrid class, you're giving up half of it. You don't want to give it up. You want to move it online. You deserve it, and the students deserve it too. So I think if you have a lecture lab class, you've got even more time to put online, right? Because the ratio is different. This similar question is, how do I know which activities to put face-to-face and which online? Well, this is a brilliant Muddiest Point, because we expect you to be muddy on this point right now. There's no answer to that question, but we're going to be working on it.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, think what works best online, what works best face-to-face. We had some great face-to-face discussions today, but I will tell you, I've had great online discussions as a student and as also the teacher. So think about, like if it was discussion, what are the complex discussions that are better when students can be putting links in there or putting images and things like that? What are the better discussions really face-to-face?
Yep.
So try to divide it up that way.
Or maybe half of your discussion starts online, where all those initial ideas get thrown out, and then you follow up with a really, really great face-to-face follow-up discussion. But we're going to get time in the online session and in the face-to-face sessions of this hybrid training to think about what might work best. And there's always instructional coaches and instructional designers after this training if you want to dig in and really talk about what works best, both for the students in terms of learning and you in terms of a teacher. Question about how do we get students to do the pre-work? No great answer to that, other than I will say incentivize them either, as Kay pointed out, by attaching grades to it. I will also suggest that if you start demonstrating that if students do the pre-work, they might get feedback from you in a timely manner that would help close the loop on their learning. We're going to try to demonstrate that. Maybe the fact that we're giving you some feedback on work you did will incentivize you to do the online work. So I think, that might help. What else? Let's see here.
And just letting students know it's okay. So the biggest reason why we end up doing lectures is because the students didn't read the chapter, or even if you weren't calling it pre-work, maybe you're calling it homework, students didn't do the homework. You have to develop a pattern where students know that you're not going to go back and redo this if they didn't do the work. Sure, you're doing formative assessment. Sure, you'll go back and go through things that students aren't getting, but you're not going to go, chapter by chapter in the book because they didn't read it.
And especially with a hybrid class, I normally say this at the first session. I've taught one hybrid class and it was not the best of both worlds. It was the worst of both worlds because students didn't do the online part, and so I was forced to lecture twice as fast, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't work because students didn't do their work. I'll just let you know, my teaching partner Carrie Mitchell and I are doing an Active Learning Institute, which is all about this stuff. So we're going to roll it out next year to everybody. I think Kay's right. All the research shows you should be doing something other than lecturing in class if you want your students to learn. And they have to hold up their end of the bargain. And it's so easy for students to force us to do what they want us to do, which is to let them sit passively and listen, even though they're not learning anything. So stick to your guns,
Yeah,
right?
and
make that design and let them know, I'm not going to cave in, right? I'm going to hold you accountable. And some of you didn't do the work, but I'm going to hold you accountable.
And I would say now, while Eric said lecture, I have no problem with stories. Oh,
And I don't
storytelling.
mean no lecture.
Yeah, and
yes.
So the thing of it is storytelling where you set the epistemic frame, and I'll use my friend as an example of an accountant and how accountants talk and what kind of vocabulary gets used and how you deal with the situation and how you're in that profession. That kind of storytelling, I don't consider that a lecture.
And I am not anti-lecture in general. I guess I'll just point out that two people talked about what do they usually do on the first day of class? They go over the syllabus. But what if you turn that into a quiz? Well, students are actually going to learn the stuff if you take a quiz on it. They're not going to remember any of the stuff if you just talk about it or very little, but we're digressing. Let's end on this. In terms of the worksheet itself, difficulties in splitting up the categories, pre-work, introduction, we're going to ask with these categories. We think it'll become more clear as you work on the abridged worksheet in session 2 and then work on the full worksheet. We're going to show you some samples. So, you know, it might not be clear now, but we think everyone will be capable of coming up with a sample of what pre-work and homework might look like, what that introduction might look like, what that instruction and practice section should look like, and then what the transition. So, it should be muddy at this point. We're expecting, you know, it to be muddy at this point, and we hope things clear up over the next 2 weeks.
Yes, and the other thing about it is, going into this session too, you'll get to see examples of what Eric and I consider our instruction online. Okay, and this is one of them.
Yeah, so we're actually, you know, starting you off into the instruction section. And what time? Let's read.
It's 1:17. So 17 minutes after. Yeah, right, no, we don't. But
so thank you for coming today. Thank you for giving us some Muddiest Points to talk about. And so when you do the quiz between now and the next face-to-face session, this is what we want you to do for session 2. There are going to be Muddiest Points that come up in this online chunk. Email us. We'll be happy to try to help you. But before next Monday, get in, take that quiz online. Let us know what the Muddiest Point. And if you do, we'll get to talk about it. And thank you guys very much.
Bye.